want to spend a little bit of time tonight talking about the social movement, which is obviously building steam in this society, and how, where we think it's going, and then how we can potentially build it. And we have a few ideas about that, so we'll try to work some of those things out. So we're going to show video, and then we'll do a presentation, and we hope that even during the presentation it's interactive and people can talk and discuss things while it's happening, but then particularly after, then it'll be a free-for-all. We can discuss whatever parts of it that we need to discuss. Okay, but first we'll start out by watching the video.
Fight, fight, fight! Because housing is a human right!
There's no excuse why we have peopleless housing and homeless people that we have not made the connection.
It's immoral that there should be vacant houses standing there and people who are living on the streets homeless. That situation shouldn't be allowed to exist.
Lori, to homeless advocates, it's a simple supply and demand issue. So many empty foreclosed homes and so many people who need them.
Advocates for the housing say is happening all across the country with this controversy involving Fannie Mae and foreclosing on people's homes. What they're concerned about, Rebecca, is that this home is going to be empty now. It had a family living in it. She was able to make the payments, but the government agency wouldn't accept the payments from her.
Then the banks used the money that was given to them by the public to finance the evictions of people, of human beings living in these homes.
The farmers I've talked to, over half of people who farm don't own the land they farm. And this is part of the land grab going on. This house is being grabbed, farmers are losing their land, and they're snagging property all over the place.
And we are concerned watching how people of color are systematically excluded from decisions about how land and space is used in Madison.
It's going to take us, the people, to provide the solution that are plaguing our community and addressing the issues of homelessness.
So that's why we're here to liberate the South Side. The banks got bailed out.
We got sold out!
We're approaching homeowners that are at risk of foreclosure and working with them to put them in touch with organizations that might be able to help them either deal with the finances or deal with the illegality of the foreclosures. If that's not successful with some individuals, we're placing them in homes that are vacant.
Living in the back of a truck after a bank foreclosed on the home they had owned for 22 years, the Trody family of Miami, with the help of their neighbors, took matters into their own hands.
On behalf of this family and this community, we liberate this home for this family. Cut the sign down, take it off. Yay!
Well, it is not a sit-in, it's called a live-in.
Catherine Lennon is back.
I'm living just almost like when we first got it, on the floor.
Forcibly evicted from her foreclosed house in the 19th Ward in March, on Sunday, Lennon moved right back in.
Now, to be absolutely clear, what these folks are doing is illegal.
Our primary concern is not what's legal and illegal, but what's moral and immoral. I think it's immoral for people to be out on the street when there's thousands of houses that are still in good condition. That could be used for people.
Are you willing to go to jail? I mean, she could possibly go to jail.
But I do think that there are people who should go to jail. I don't think it's either me or her, but there are people who should go to jail because of this housing crisis.
Right, and that is what we're doing here. We're modeling morality. So not only are we drawing attention to laws that are immoral, but we're also modeling what the law should be, and that is to pair peopleless homes with homeless people.
Somebody help me.
Because of the government inability to provide an answer to the homelessness crisis that is plaguing our country, because of the bank unwillingness to help homeowners, we have taken it upon ourselves as men, women of our communities to take back control of our community. Yeah!
The goal of the movement is to achieve community control over land. For some communities, low-income black communities, it looks like housing. So we want housing, right? Okay. For other communities, it looks like land for food, land for medicine. But I'll be very clear, the movement is about land.
The fundamental purpose of a house, of these four walls and a roof in this society, should be to house human beings, to serve as a home for human beings. The fundamental purpose of this place should not be to serve as a profit center for banks and for other corporations.
We are also demanding that this house and other vacant rental properties owned by Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac be turned over to the Community Land Trust so that the vacant land can be used for the community's benefit.
What's going on today?
We're going to Maryland Lynch, to tell them that we are taking back the land.
Peter's not insane. Who let you in?
Everybody, you need to come out.
You need to go this way.
You need to go this way. You are now trespassing. You need to leave.
I live in a vacant foreclosed Bank of America home. If I didn't live there, I would be homeless. I want Bank of America to give this property to the Community Land Trust so it can remain as affordable housing.
I want Bank of America to set an example for how we can solve the economic and housing crisis they have helped to start by giving this property to the community for affordable housing.
My name is Ann, and we demand that Bank of America provide affordable, community-owned housing to address the homeless and economic crisis they are partially responsible for.
We want an answer from a representative of Bank of America to make plans for these demands to be met.
Yes, I own a house which they are trying to foreclose, but I'm going to be in that house. I'm telling you, I'm going to be in my house. You hear me?
Indeed. I let the music raise funds for community centers. Start a high school that is soon to be finished. I'm thinking about starting a community garden. Trillions on the war while the poor people are starving. I'm at the intersection between love and liberation, indoctrination and occupation. I demand a response to this emergency, so the government is conscious of insurgency. So much work to do, so few jobs to find. I'm marching in Detroit to take back the land. But how do we stop this obnoxious nonsense? A meeting, a forum, a concert, a conference. I understand the need to talk and process, but we need action, not just thoughts and concepts.
Somebody help me.
That's word.
This is not healthy.
Oh, man.
As everyone is aware, right now we are in the midst of a severe economic and social crisis in this country. And as a result of that economic and social crisis, people are really rethinking their relationship to a number of social institutions that they frankly hadn't thought about much before. So people thought it was perfectly normal to go out to a bank and get a pot of money and continue to pay the money back at whatever exorbitant rates were, and didn't think anything about it. And certainly during the boom, about 10 years ago, when things started to really pick up in terms of the housing crisis, most people were not thinking about that at all. They were thinking, I'm going to try to cash in as quickly as possible. So now that the boom ended and it's the bust, people are rethinking their relationship to banks, their relationship to the financial industry, and their relationship to housing, and most importantly, their relationship to other people. What is our responsibility to other people? What are other people's responsibilities to us? And what is our relationship as people, as human beings, to banks, to government, to these other institutions? So we have an opportunity here to build a movement that could significantly transform this society, at least in one sector of the economy, and that is land and land relationships. At least that. We could have the potential to change the entire society, but at least because people are thinking about land and thinking about land relationships, we have the opportunity to change that. So long as we can clearly articulate a new vision of what the way this society could be organized, and that we put forth some credible ways of getting to that vision. Say that instead of people paying the highest bid in order to get a place to live when everyone needs a place to live, every human being would have a place to live. And the exchange is, the trade we're going to try to make with people is, you're not going to be able to get rich promoting a house. You're not going to be able to buy a house today for $100,000 and sell it in 5 years for $300,000. But in exchange, you're not going to have to pay $100,000 for a house. You're going to get a house that's way cheaper, and everyone is going to get a house. So that's the exchange we think we can make and do that. And as a result of people rethinking their relationships to phenomenon, I think we have in our lifetime the opportunity to achieve housing as a fundamental human right. That in 10 years or 15 years, housing could be recognized as a human right, not just because the city of Madison puts out this piece of paper that says we think housing is a human right, but because housing is actually a recognized human right. And when the police are set out to enforce the laws in the books would not say do whatever the bank tells you to do, even if human beings have to live on the street. It'll say human beings are not allowed to live on the street. That's what it'll actually say. And then and then the society has to figure out how do we make that happen in a real way. So we have the chance to do that. But the only way we can do that is to build a movement that can achieve that. Because at the same time that we are trying to achieve that, we're heading in that direction, we're building towards that direction, we're trying to get people to think about that direction, we're organizing with that direction, there are forces who are going to be doing the exact opposite. So we're not going to be practicing where we're going to be shooting layups in an empty gym. We're going to be playing when there's another team on the floor and they're going to be trying to block our shots. And it turns out they play dirty. So we have to figure out how we can do that. So we're not just building organizations, we have to actually build a coherent and full movement. And that's what we want to talk about. What does the movement look like? What do the objectives look like? So we Take Back the Land, we have four principles around which we're organized, and two of them also double as our objectives. Number one is that housing is a fundamental human right. Is our first organizing principle. The second one is that communities must control land, the land that they sit on, work on, worship on. And the general idea about that is, if a community identifies that we have this particular need, like we need a daycare center and we need a rec center in our community, that's what should be built there. But now what's happening is that low-income communities of color in particular are saying we need a daycare center and a rec center over here, and instead what we get is a Starbucks and a Walmart. Even though that's not what we asked for and that's not what we want, and that doesn't really provide us any real benefits. So communities control land. The third is that movements must be led by impacted communities. And for us, that is explicitly meant, we've talked about since the very beginning, that means low-income people. Inside of low-income people, it's people of color who are more impacted than whites, even low-income whites. Inside of people of color, it's black people. So it's low-income black communities are the most impacted by every measure that we've seen. And inside of the black community, it's women. So this movement must be led by low-income black women. And that's where we need that. And then the fourth principle is that because of this particular time that we find ourselves in, and the forces that we find going against us, we really can't win what we want to win by lobbying or by talking with people or by trying to make nice or trying to convince someone that they have a moral obligation that they actually don't want to recognize. So therefore, the only way we're going to move things is by engaging in what we call positive action campaigns. So the fourth one is positive action campaign. Some people call it direct action or civil disobedience. We'll talk about that in a minute also. So those are four organizing principles, the principles around which we are built. Take Back the Land started in 2006 in Miami, in the fall of 2006. And since then, we have grown to have affiliated organizations. We're not a national organization. In that sense, we have what we call a trans-local network, where we have a network of autonomous local organizations that get together and try to support one another. But so at some point, we're doing this work. Most of you know what the work of Take Back the Land is, and we'll go in detail about it again in a minute. But we engage in this work of eviction defense and land liberation, where we open up vacant homes and make them available for families. At some point, though, we had to take a step back and figure out, okay, what are we doing here? What are we actually building? What are we actually moving? What's working? What's not working? And think in the big picture. So we developed after a lot of trial and error, a lot of discussion, we developed a movement model, a model that we think explains what the movement is, at least to us, and then how we go about it. So there are objectives right here is elevate housing to the level of human right, secure community control of the land. How are we doing this? How are we achieving these things? We are building a movement to achieve these objectives. And the way that we're building a movement is, or the only ways that we can build a movement, or the rules that we're utilizing in order to build this movement, is that we have a trans-local network, that it's not nationally, or we don't have a top-heavy a way of conceiving what this network would be, or what this movement would be. It's led by impacted communities, and is direct action or positive action focused, right? All right, so we take a step back and we look at what we're talking about in terms of movement, okay? And we develop this metaphor for a movement which we call the spear. You know, Take Back the Land, we don't get funding, so we don't have much money, so we couldn't afford to hire an artist to draw a spear. So instead we get this arrow. But anyways, this is a spear. So the tip of the spear here is, in this metaphor, is positive action, these positive action campaigns. So in a spear, in a physical spear, what the tip of the spear does is its job is to create an opening, or to penetrate an opening in the thing that you're targeting. So if you're targeting an animal, the tip of the spear is what gets inside of the animal. Well, the tip of the spear is not big enough to actually kill the animal. What actually kills the animal is the girth over here and these hooks at the end. But the tip of the spear, these hooks of course can't get in if the tip of the spear is dull. So it is an extremely important part on the tip of the spear. So we engage in these actions, these positive action campaigns, which include, again, eviction defenses, where when a family is facing eviction, we go and we physically blockade and defend the family from eviction. And an increasing number of times, increasing percentage of the time, particularly since Occupy has joined the scene, we are winning those showdowns, and we're preventing families from getting evicted. And the other thing that we're doing is we're engaging in what we call land liberation. We've been calling it that since 2006, but we think that the banks are occupying our communities and are occupying our homes. We don't want to occupy them, we want to liberate them from the banks and for our communities. So land liberation and eviction defense are the two types of positive action. So we noticed a couple of things about what happened when we did engage in these positive action campaigns. One was that we were able to get a lot of media attention. So it turns out the media really, really likes it when people break the law and they are willing to say we are breaking the law. All right? So that's made it very exciting. And communities really like it when in this time of wheeling and dealing with those who are in power and making deals with those who are in power, there are forces in the community that are willing to stand up and fight on behalf of the community rather than just negotiate with, in a losing effort ultimately with those who are in power. So this has got a lot of attention. What it was not able to do, frankly, is win anything, because we were not able to effectively win by just protesting, even if the protest was extremely effective, even if it was extremely good, and even because of the protest, we're in a position where we could win. Well, for a number of reasons. So you can't win just by protesting. At some point, you got to go in and sit down and make whatever, figure out what you want to win or what you're trying to win.